Hello everyone, I hope everyone has had a great week. As you know, if you've been following my blog posts for this particular month, I've been focusing on feedback, a number of different areas of feedback. The first is really self-feedback, which is maybe one of the most important areas. It's really monitoring our actions and what we say, and so we're not just going blindly through life. We're giving ourselves this feedback so we can make adjustments along the way. Being specific, trying to focus on one aspect at a time. It's really about how we can change more than anything. I think feedback and mountaineering is really a great analogy of where this is so important. We're heavily relying on the feedback from our own bodies. As we push into the altitude, our bodies, we get the onset of acute mountain sickness, which is accompanied with headaches and nausea and a lot of really negative feedback from our bodies telling us we're pushing too far or too fast. If we push that too far, we get edema, either cerebral or pulmonary edema, and lose our lives. If we don't push it far enough, we really don't trigger the production of red blood cells and the acclimatization process properly. And so we're really constantly monitoring ourselves, but I think the same thing applies in our lives in general, in that we have to be continuously asking ourselves, we're kind of having this self-dialogue, does the person I want to become, would they say and would they act the way I'm acting right now? If not, what needs to change? And that's what this feedback element in terms of self-feedback is all about. The second aspect of feedback is really giving feedback. And some of us are more effective than others at actually doing this. It depends really how we're approaching this giving feedback. Most of us, we approach it from a reactive point of view, and really we have to look at our motivation for giving the feedback. Is it in a resentful manner, or is it actually to try to build the other person up? It should really focus on improvement and suggestions more than anything, and try to focus on objective facts rather than really our subjective feelings, although sometimes those can be important as well if given from the right mentality and motivation, as I mentioned. And people avoid giving feedback altogether just because they don't want to get into conflict. And conflict, as I've explored in previous blog series, in and itself is actually quite healthy, as long as it doesn't escalate to a point where it's completely destructive and really there's no dialogue going on at all at that point. People are just acting defensively. And so it's really giving feedback, but trying to maintain that harmony as much as possible. I mean, sometimes we're going to have to ruffle other people's feathers, so to speak, because we're trying to help them improve. But that's what giving feedback's all about, and that's why it's so important. The third area that we had explored was really seeking out feedback. And this isn't something we often do, because we often, if our egos get in the way, we don't want to always hear the result. But those of us who really, if we want to improve our lives, it's really it's so important to be continuously seeking out feedback. It takes courage. Ask people, and to have an open mind in terms of the response that we're going to get, so that we can make these positive changes. And it doesn't always have to be verbally. Certainly if we're paying attention to the nonverbal cues, the body language, for example, we're continuously getting feedback in that way. I do a lot of, as most of you know, a lot of you have seen my either presentations or workshops around North America, and I'm continuously getting feedback from the audience and making adjustments accordingly, which I think is so key. The last area that I had talked about in terms of feedback is what is known as feed forward, which was really a concept that was developed by Marshall Goldsmith. But it's really, it gets at the fact that after someone's made a mistake, often especially in the workplace, giving them negative feedback isn't necessarily effective, other than just creates animosity at times. And so it's focusing on the future performance. And what can we say really that will help someone in their future goals? So it's not a radically new concept. It's just really reframing the way we're approaching feedback. It's really focusing on future development and growth rather than dwelling in the past. And so the discussion should be around what is expected and how to really shape this future events by focusing on changes going forward. And so it's a really good thing for us to keep in mind when giving feedback. I mean, certainly the future is where where people have control of making changes. We don't want to dwell too much in the past. So that's my series on feedback. If you missed any of the blog posts, feel free to go to my website and you'll see them all there. And look forward to sharing another video with you next month.